name is Julianne Meyer. I am the host of Own Your Wellness. I'm excited to be back. I still don't feel quite right. For those of you who don't know, I went to Greece. I spent 9 days there and got engaged. Yay! It was one of those bachelor moments on a private balcony overlooking the Aegean Sea. With a Michelin star chef cooking us a 5-course meal. I know. I can't believe it really happened like that. Especially since I'm pretty low key. So anyway, it was a wonderful trip. We had a blast. It was one of those experiences that on top of the engagement was just life-changing in the most wonderful ways, and just seeing a different part of the world. I'd forgotten how much I adore living in Europe. And it was the first time I'd been back to visit since I moved back to the United States. So it made me feel right at home, and it was great to experience different cultures. But I am back and I am excited. I've got the most amazing guest for you guys today. His name is Mike Zangl, and he is, you know what? Let's just introduce him and we'll go from there. Hi, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Julianne. Thanks for having me.
So glad that you're here. So, you have a lot of education. You have a lot of, you're just an amazing guy. So I would just love for you to share a bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I've been through a lot of education and some different pathways that most people probably don't go through. They try to stick to one area, and I've been across the board on a lot of different things. But my wellness journey started, I grew up in Southern California. I still live in Southern California. So I'm in a very active area. So being active, being in a health conscious kind of mindset's been throughout my entire life. But helping people, that's what really started. That is when I was in college and I got hurt playing college football, and I went through the rehab process, and I just started to realize I don't want other people to have to go through these injuries and these different pain points and stressful situations. And I want to learn how to help people get through those things. And fortunately, I've been able to do that from youth to high school to college to professional athletes. Currently, it's tactical athletes with fire and law enforcement. I've even delved into the corporate world with some of the public sector. So I've just been very fortunate to be able to take my journey and what I've learned over the years and help the people that keep our society running and keep us safe and allow us to do what we do, keep the lights on. And I'm just very excited to be able to share some of those tips and tricks and my story, my journey with your audience and with you today. So I'm very grateful to be on here. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're here. Something that sticks out to me, first of all, is that, you don't have like a cookie cutter background. So you aren't stuck in one spot, which I think definitely helps you see things a little more holistically. And that's a beautiful thing, because as somebody who's worked because I used to work in pharmacy, I used to work in addiction recovery, I used to work in a bunch of different, areas. There's a lot of cross-pollination, and and one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing. So it's kind of nice when you can find one person that can be an answer to multiple things. So I guess what I'm really curious about is there a difference between, say, helping a high school student and a police officer, for example?
So what's interesting about that is what people don't realize is we're not as different as we seem in terms of our professions and where our circumstances are. Everyone deals with mental kind of health issues that they might be going through. Everyone's dealing with nutritional deficiencies they might be going through. Everyone has to deal with time. Time's a big one. So a high school student has to do schoolwork. They have family things going on. They have practice. They have all kinds of different things going on in their life. They have a social calendar to keep. Police officer or a firefighter is no different. They have family. They have health issues they're going through. They work 24-hour shifts, some even longer, and they have to be able to balance all that out. I think the only thing that's really different between the two demographics is their age and some different things like that. But other than that, the system is there in place. We just plug different things into the system, and we use different methods to get them to where they want to be and reach their goals. And it's interesting what you said. There's kind of a cross-pollination across a lot of different things. And I'm able to take things I've learned with the high school students and apply it to the law enforcement and the fire side, and then flip-flop it and take what I've learned from the fire and law enforcement side and apply those life lessons and things to the high school or even the youth athletes that I work with. So it's a very interesting dynamic, but they're not as different as people might think.
I'm really glad that you said that, because I'm always looking for the commonalities instead of, the differences. Because if you look for what is similar, it's amazing what you can find. And then, like you said, if you weren't willing to do that, how would you have been able to, help each other, the different, demographics? Just how I'm going to put it, like a high school student, for example, nobody else would think of that necessarily unless they were open to looking at, how can I help everyone? Because there is that same difference. So do you think that some issues, well, actually, let me rephrase this. How big of an issue is stress when it comes to the physical aspect of living?
Well, what's interesting about that is, so my main background is strength and conditioning. And when people think strength and conditioning, they're thinking like these big old guys that are throwing around a bunch of weight and they're these big old muscles and they're just gym rats all the time. Well, a strength and conditioning coach or a specialist is really a stress manager. You're trying to figure out what the upper limit of someone's stress really is. So how much can they handle? What's their minimal effective dose of stress they need to get better and perform at a high level? And how far do you need to push them without pushing them over the edge? So that initial piece of exercise that they're doing, is it too much? Is it too little? Is it right where it needs to be? And we're managing stress every single day. And especially in that tactical side, we're talking about fire and law enforcement. The stuff they go through is unbelievable. The stories you hear, the things they have to deal with is crazy. So just getting them to calm down a little bit after those events, we have to do that first before we actually put them under barbells and dumbbells and kettlebells and all of that. Because if we don't, then we're just pushing them over the edge, and that's the last thing we want. From a high school standpoint, or just a youth athlete standpoint, their stresses are different. Their stresses are taking a test or having to do a 5-minute oral presentation in front of their classmates, or their girlfriends break up with them, their boyfriends break up with them. So there's all these different things you have to manage. And I think one of the biggest things from a holistic standpoint is asking these people how they're doing. So when you first see them, it's how are you doing today? And if you have the trust with them, they'll provide some information for you, and you'll be able to adjust what they're doing and keep them in the safest environment possible and the highest performing environment possible.
Well, something that I was thinking too is, to the high school student, that we could say, oh, it's just a test or just a breakup, but to them, it's really serious. So, how is that really that different in stress compared to, say, a police officer? Because to them, it seems kind of like life and death. So, I mean, there's another commonality, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Something that I'm hearing you say that I think is really important that I want to highlight is, there's a difference between what you do and how you offer your services compared to your run-of-the-mill, like, trainer, for example, because a trainer doesn't ask you those kinds of questions unless you're me. But there is a difference, and I just think it's really important that we highlight that the stress you're under can affect everything. It's not just, also your sleep and everything else. But I like that you're talking about how police officers and firemen, like the traumas that they're secondary traumas, as it's called, from like seeing these things, it causes effects in their body. We keep our issues in our tissues. But what are do you do other things with people that maybe, help relieve some of that pressure that they feel internally when they've experienced, like, they got a test coming up, or they just were in a shootout or something like that?
Yeah. So the current company I'm mainly involved in is ProTeam Tactical Performance. And that's where we dive into the mental health side, the nutrition side, the strength and conditioning, the rehab, all the work conditioning types of things. And what our company's developed is a mental health app for these first responders. So when they do go through an event like a shooting, or they had to tackle a perpetrator, or they saw something horrific in a fire or in an emergency medical situation, they're able to go on to a platform that we developed where they can log in their information. They can journal it. They can get it out of their heads and out of their psyches, essentially, to help them kind of ease those traumas that they're going through. and it's a non-identified thing. So that information is not going anywhere. It's their own little journal, but it helps them work through those issues, and it helps their families. And it's a very interesting way to, for them to get around some of those secondary issues that might come up later on, that trauma. So we do a lot of that first, and we realize not all injuries are visible. So if someone's going through someone can tear their ACL or blow out their ankle or tear their shoulder up, but what injuries are happening internally when they see something horrific or something happens to them? So we don't know, and that's why that app and that program was developed as part of our holistic approach to our company.
Something that I'm thinking too about what you guys offer that makes it special and unique is it's not like it's replacing therapy or therapists or anything like that, but it really empowers the person to take more control on a daily basis of their own mental, emotional, and physical health, instead of like waiting once a week to talk, like for an hour. Not that I'm putting that down, because I'm not, but I just love the idea of really being in charge of yourself and doing as much as you can, owning your wellness, as they say.
Right. So. And you bring up a good point about not replacing therapy. So what we've done is we've had this application in this program set, but we also have external resources that we provide people. So we do have the local, psychiatrist or local psychologist that's ready to go if they do need those people. So we're not just completely discontinuing all that. It's a partnership in terms of how we handle the mental health of, just in our case, first responders, but it could be anybody when it comes to that process. So
I think first responders have they automatically have to have a big heart, because to put themselves in that position and then to see the things that they see, it's like, they may be brave and strong and all the things, but at the same time, when you have a big heart and that you're open to that, you experience all the pain too from it. So it's pretty impressive that you and your company saw a need and were able to fill it in such a unique way. I love that so much. How long have you guys been around?
So it's a pretty new company. It's only been around 4 or 5 years. And it started with our owners, who were professional athletes. One was a professional football player, one was a professional baseball player. And they realized how well athletes get treated. So they get all the nutrition, they get all the programs written for them, they have all of the tools. And they started to realize, well, we have family members who are police officers and firefighters. Why are the people that are saving lives not getting the same type of treatment? And we took that same model and we started to bring it to, tactical athletes in terms of fire and law enforcement. So that's how it all got started. And the mission is to help those people who help us. And we're doing that every single day. And we have to be at our best, because on their worst day, we can't have a bad day. We have to be at our best for them. So that's what we're really striving for.
Well, I like that too, because it's kind of like you're the safe place, so they can't always be the strong one. They need somebody to lean on from time to time. So I think that that's a really amazing and impressive way to help people that don't necessarily get the attention that they deserve. So, Now, you mentioned a few times nutrition. So I know a lot of people don't really realize how important nutrition is and how much it can actually affect even your mood and your emotions and everything. So what are your thoughts about nutrition?
Well, my thoughts about nutrition is it's always the natural side first. So you're eating real foods. You're not just going to the local drugstore and getting a supplement or getting something off the shelves or anything like that. You're taking that. Again, it's back to that holistic approach of nutrition. You're hydrating, you're eating your fruits and vegetables, it sounds overly simplified, but those simple nutritional principles will take you a long way. And I have this discussion every day with the high school students, and just anytime I'm with those first responders, is what you put into your body is how you're going to perform. So it's one of those like garbage in, garbage out kind of concepts, where if I'm not putting good things into my body, my output's not going to be very good. Mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever the case may be. So it's one of those things where it's baby steps with nutrition. You're taking little things, you know what I mean? It's not, hey, we're going to do an overhaul of your diet on day one. It's, hey, you eat poorly. How about add a slice of an apple for day one? And then you add another vegetable for the next week. And it's just that you're building those habits and those building blocks over time. And I firmly believe nutrition is a habit changer rather than, hey, just what you're eating. So.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And, I just, a few things. It's like you don't put diesel in an unleaded engine. So, but I also understand too, that when you are under stress, that a lot of people, the only things that sound and you want to like self-medicate with food, it's like all of a sudden that in and out sounds really fabulous instead of, the cucumber or whatever. I mean, obviously it's, apples and oranges, but you understand what I'm saying. It's kind of hard to, but if you're building those habits and that starts to taste good to you, then that can become your go-to as opposed to these other things, right?
Yeah. What's interesting about that is people like, you don't have to eat perfectly, right?
Yeah.
You can have, the 80-20 rule where 80% of the time you're eating clean, you're having that healthy meal. And then you have some room to, go out with your friends and have that pizza or that hamburger or that drink. What we found is people are more stressed when they make it too strict. So it actually works against them. So instead of having that little balance in there and being able to have some fun and, plan that out. And that goes back to just knowing yourself and understanding what your lifestyle is like. If you're going to go out on the weekend once a week, then you might want to, plan ahead, eat those healthy meals leading up to that point instead of the opposite. So it's one of those things where people just have to change their mindset of, hey, you don't have to eat perfect to be healthy. It's what's going to be best for you in the short term. And then you work for those long-term habits. So.
I really like that idea. I want to highlight too, is that it's more stressful to try and be perfect because, food should be fueling your life, not be your life. Like if you're obsessing consistently and constantly about, your next meal or how many carbs and versus protein and all that, that is not a pleasant life to be living. So I'm glad that you mentioned that because people assume that it has to be like all or nothing instead of like most of the time good or just enjoy it. And the other thing too that I think we should mention is that if you are going to go out and have the pizza or the drink or whatever, enjoy it so much and then eat what you normally eat the next time.
Exactly. It's crazy how many times you'll go out or something like that and someone's trying to have fun with it, but then they're trying to be healthy at the same time and they're trying to play the fence, and you just do one or the other. Go enjoy it and then go back on your plan the next day or something like that. I think.
Yeah, because one meal is not going to kill you. And, having a, exorbitant amount of calories one time is not going to kill you. Exactly. Especially if, you are out having a great time. I think that food can become something where, it's something you enjoy who you're with. And the experience, like it would be weird not to have a piece of birthday cake at a birthday party, unless you're diabetic, of course, but Yep, exactly. So what do you think is, or I should say, do you think that first responders have different physical needs than say somebody that works from home?
Oh, absolutely. What's cool about what we do is we actually get to be on site for some of these drills and tactical skills that they follow. And what's funny is, like, again, back to my background, I've been across the board on everything. So I've worked with the office worker who sits for 8 hours a day and who doesn't get up and doesn't take a break and doesn't stretch. And then on the other side, you get the firefighter who's throwing a ladder and has 70 pounds of gear on and who is asleep, and all of a sudden an alarm goes off and they have to be right up and their central nervous system's out the door. So it is, and that's one of the big differences. An office worker is, I love people that work in offices. I've worked with them, but it's a different physical demand. It's more, hey, let's just get you up and moving around, go for a walk, do a couple stretches here just so your body doesn't get all crumbled up at your desk. But the firefighter, it might be the complete opposite. It might be the fact that they're working so hard that we're trying to calm them back down with like a breathing routine or foam rolling or some type of modality to get their nervous systems to slow down a little bit because they're so revved up. And that's like the two ends of the spectrum with an office worker and those tactical athletes. So it's very different. Yeah,
it is. But the thing that I'm hearing you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not that one's better than the other. It's just different needs require different answers. So it's not, so why would you expect, the office worker to be waking up like that in the middle of the night? It's not good for anybody. I mean, unless you're in that position. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about, you have a program coming up soon, correct?
Yes. So at our company, we developed something called the Resilient Recruit Program. And what that is it's a program developed specifically for people who are going to be recruits in the fire service or in law enforcement. And what we found is across the country, it could be outside the country too, we're delving into all kinds of stuff. But what we found is when they go through recruit school, so it could be 10 weeks, it could be 20 weeks, whatever it is, they're getting injured more. They're costing their departments more money. And they're what's happening is they're becoming a recyclable, which means they get dropped out of the one academy, or they drop out and they have to get recycled back to the next one, which costs the departments more money. And we found that need, and we developed a program with questionnaires and on-site visits and strength and conditioning programming, the use of an online application we can use, and our educational platforms and universities that we've developed to help this leadership that runs the academies. We're not replacing them, but we want to be a toolbox or a resource for them, so their department isn't spending $100,000 extra on an injury or recyclable and costing them money, where they can take that saved money and put it back into their people from a nutrition standpoint, or better gear or better equipment. So that program is what we're really working on and utilizing right now. That way, when they do become incumbents in their departments, they already have the mindset of being healthy, and they're just that much better off, and they're safer for us. If we are in trouble on the streets, we need that police officer. If there is a burning building, we need that firefighter to be fast and agile and powerful and healthy to be able to do their job. So that's what we're really focused on right now. And we're really proud of the work we've done on it to help these people out and just make it a great partnership across the country.
I love that. So how do people, if they're interested, how should they just reach out to you?
Yeah, so they can reach out to me, and then we can provide all the information from our solutions teams and our business development team, our owners, and we have a full team of athletic trainers, physical therapists, mental health professionals that work hand in hand to put this together. And we get on a basic call, kind of like a little Zoom call, and we discuss the details and we go from there. So it's an eye-opening experience when we get to meet with people, because every single department's different. They have different needs, they have different equipment, they have different times. Some people have 5 people in the recruit classes, some people have 100. So it's all just it's a learning experience every time you talk to departments and people about what we do, and this program in particular. So it's contacting me through this, and then I don't know if at the end maybe I could provide my email or something like that. That'd be totally fine with that, and we can definitely just start helping people out, which is great.
I love that. Yeah. So when we go to commercial break, write it in the chat, and we'll make sure we put that up on the screen too, so that people can reach out to you directly via email, because that might even be better. But yeah, so I'm really excited that you guys are doing this. You don't know this, but I wanted to be a deputy sheriff. And I did oh my gosh, I did so much physical work to get ready for it. And it didn't end up happening, but it wasn't because I wasn't physically ready. So I totally appreciate the idea of, a lot of it, and from firsthand experience, it was up here. I had to get over some stuff up here before I could even physically perform in the way that I really needed to. And it was amazing. And I don't know if you're familiar with Wim Hof. Do you know who that is? Yeah. He got my push-ups from doing the breathing technique. I was doing, because I wanted to do, this is just for the tryouts, it was 30 military push-ups, and I wanted to be able to do them all in a row without stopping. And I was, I don't know, probably 39 at the time. So I was, older and a female. So I'm using those as my excuses. And I could do 24, and then I had to pause. But after doing that, I could do 35, no problem. And they were the best push-ups I ever did. So it's amazing. It's not always what you think it is.
Yep. Yeah, Wim Hof's definitely a big name out there in the breathing and fitness world, and he can get you where you want to go for sure. So yeah.
Well, I mean, even if you're not into him or anything, I just really want to reiterate what you do, because it's not just the physical aspect of things. There's so much more. Like you said, sometimes you just need to be able to relax your nervous system. If you can't sleep, how can you be good the next day? If you can't relax, if you're under all that kind of stress, how can you perform at your highest ability? So whether or not you're in high school or a first responder, same thing, right? Of course, first responders have a little bit more on their plate, obviously. just a little bit, just a little. Yep. But anyway, it is time for us to go to commercial. So we're going to be back in just a minute. Okay.
Awesome.
For those of you who are watching us live, thank you for being here. As I mentioned, it is time for us to go to commercial, so we'll be back in just a minute.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversation. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Welcome back, everyone. If you are just joining us now, our guest today is Mike Zangl. Let's bring him back. Welcome back to the show. So as we mentioned before, we wanted to add your email so that people could take a look at that and maybe reach out to you via that. So we have it running across the bottom of the screen for everybody. So, write it down if you need to. But, something that I was thinking about during the commercial break was you had mentioned a little bit about tips and tricks, and I was hoping maybe you could share something with us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll try to hit it in segments here because there's a lot of different things we could talk about. I think the biggest thing is when someone's going through their first, exercise journey, they're trying to get to the highest level possible, is understanding kind of where you're starting. So everyone starts in a different place. Some people are more fit than others. Some people are more motivated than others. So I think going through some type of an assessment first is a big thing. And it could be a questionnaire. It could be a movement assessment. It could just be writing stuff down that you feel like are more applicable to you in terms of your goals. And I think that's the first step that people just completely forget about. They just want to jump right into the gym, or they just want to jump right into their new eating habits, or they want to try all these different things, but they don't really dive deep into their selves. Like, what's their main goal? What's their mission? What's their vision for themselves? And where are they starting objectively at that starting point? So I think that's one of the first. It's not really a tip or trick. It's more like, okay, just a reiteration of like, this is what we should be doing. So, and then it goes back to the stress stuff. I think that's a big, tip and trick for that is knowing your body. So if I went through 4 straight workouts or I went through something stressful, it's okay to look at yourself in the mirror and go, I need to take a break. I need to chill a little bit, but we could talk hours about the different tips and tricks in terms of wellness and, getting the body the way you want to and, figuring all that stuff out. But I'm curious to know, do you have any specific questions for me on that? Like, because we could go down so many different rabbit holes with that. So I don't know.
There is, I know. And there's so many out there too. But I guess the main thing that I'm curious about is, what would you say? I mean, since stress is such a huge part of what you do, like helping people through that and with that, what would you say is maybe one of the most overlooked ways of maybe noticing it in your body? Because a lot of people are so used to feeling the stress, they don't even realize that they are stressed.
Right.
It's just like their normal way of being. So what are some ways to even recognize it?
So 2 things. You brought up Wim Hof earlier, which is the breathing. Your breathing patterns, one of the most dysfunctional patterns in our body is our breathing patterns. We don't think about it, right? I'm sitting here right now and I don't know if I'm breathing right or if I'm breathing wrong because I'm talking to you. So understanding your breathing. So you can lay on your stomach or on your back and you can test where your breathing's coming from. That's a big way to tell if you're stressed. If it's coming from my stomach, is it coming from my chest? Those types of things. And I don't know if you can tell on the screen right now, but one of my shoulders is slightly elevated than the other. And yeah, so the number one stress response for somebody is elevated shoulders. So I'm real tensed up like this. So if you look yourself in the mirror and your body's like this, that's one way to tell if you're stressed out or not, right? And every time I talk about this, I always try to sit up straight and everything, try to put my shoulders back. But those are 2 ways that are not, I guess, feeling wise, but just if you just look at yourself in the mirror and kind of go through the breathing, you can tell if you're stressed out. There are some other different like finger tricks. It sounds really strange, where they're called finger games, where you kind of tap your fingers on the table, and if your rhythm's off, you can kind of count the cadence of it. It'll tell you if you're physically or mentally stressed. So that's a whole different subject on that one. But there are some different things you can do when it comes to that stuff.
Something that I want to mention too, to tack on to what you said is when there was a time in my life that I really not paid any attention to me, which I know sounds like weird, but the point is that I didn't really know when I was upset and stressed out. I had no idea. So the way that I could tell something was wrong was if there were dishes in my sink, because I always do my dishes. So if there are dishes in my sink, I know that something is not quite right and I need to address it. So sometimes you got to figure out what your cues are, because that was mine until I learned how to pay attention to my body and my breathing and all of these other things. But that for me was like the biggest indicator. I'm like, oh, something's wrong. What's going on? That was time for me to check in.
Right. And then also too, your environment, the people around you. I'm guilty of this all the time. I have people going like, why, coach, why are you in this mood right now? And I don't realize like, oh, wow, I have a lot on my plate right now. And it's coming out verbally, not in a bad way, but like my mood's not where it used to, like it's where it should be, or my energy's a little down, and people have to physically tell you like, hey coach, like you're not up to where you're at normally today. And I have to check myself, and I have to sit down and be like, okay, what do I need to adjust today to make sure I'm back to where I need to be? So your social circle or the people you're around the most play a big part in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's okay to ask opinions and things like that, but you got to be careful who you ask too, because not
true.
everybody. Uh-oh, there we go. We lost light. That's the joys of live TV.
1 second here. Let me turn this light back on.
No problem. I just love it when these things happen. Or when all of a sudden, you can't hear anything.
Yep. That's
all right.
Technology, right? Light censored room, and then like you don't move for a second, it's just off. So it's fine. Yep, we're good. We're good.
Exactly. So, something else that I was thinking about as far as like tips and tricks are, for people who are, like office workers or even students, because students sit a lot. What are some things that we could do as, that type of society that maybe to get up? And I mean, I know that, we talk about these things, but really who does it? So what are some things that people might actually do?
Right. So for sitting for long periods of time, like most people are going to think of, go for a walk or stand up and stretch, those types of things. But some people are in jobs and situations where they physically can't get up for whatever reason. They might be in a lecture. They might be, I know during like the heavy parts of COVID where people couldn't take their hands off their computers because their companies were checking to make sure that the pressure on the keyboard was correct. So they couldn't get up. So one of the things is your posture. That's a big thing. So for sitting for long periods of time, it's not even your upper body posture or your back. It's more like your sitting posture. So your legs, so changing your foot position, extending your leg out every once in a while, getting that blood flow back into your lower body when you're sitting down for long periods of time is a simple trick you could utilize to do that. If you have the flexibility to get up and move around, one thing is every 15 to 20 minutes, stand up, go for a stretch, pick a body part here and there, go for a walk around your complex or your neighborhood, and just let your mind get away from whatever you were doing and just kind of refocus a little bit, get back to that even state. And I think one of the most underrated things is going for a walk. That 20-minute walk will clear your mind and you'll be back where you need to be. So I think that's a big thing as well. And not trying to be the superstar athlete when that's not what your job entails you to do. So you don't need to be hitting the CrossFit gym 5 days a week if your job is to work on a computer and sit in the office. That's not going to help you. So understanding what your role is and what you're doing. So yeah.
No, I like that, because I think a lot of people think that we get these ideas that nutrition looks a certain way and exercise looks a certain way, and if you don't do it that way, then you failed. And, I like the idea of really taking a look at who you are, what your life is like, and figuring out, and that's where the whole starting where you are thing comes in, and taking a look at that, because if you can't get where you want to go if you don't even know where you are. So I love that. Do you find that people overestimate their abilities when it comes to, say, like working out, for example? Because I know I see that a lot, and then they're so awful to themselves about it, and their goals are unrealistic in the first place.
I mean, ego's a big thing, right? No one wants to go into the gym or into the grocery store and.
Uh-oh. We lost someone. Let's see. All right, we're going to take this moment to go to a commercial break because, you're back. You're back.
No, we're good. That was weird. I don't know.
That was weird.
I know, that was weird. Anyway, back to what I was saying. It's an ego thing, right? No one wants their ego to get in the way of what their goals want to be. So I deal with that all the time with people where they go into, I'll give you that. The high school is a perfect example of this. We have a bunch of high school boys that go into the weight room. They're going through puberty, their testosterone's through the roof, and all they want to do is lift as much weight as they possibly can. And if they don't, they feel weak. They feel inferior. The guy next to them is growing at a different rate than they are, so they feel bad about themselves. So I had the same conversation the other day with a group of kids. And I said, guys, listen, everyone's going to start at different points here. I don't need you saying someone's weak. I don't need you guys getting on each other, but we want to make sure that where you start is not where you're going to finish. You might start at the bottom of the barrel, but if you work hard and stay consistent, you're going to be at the top of the chain here. So getting the ego out of the way is a big thing for sure. That's one of the biggest things I try to work with people in general. And then I think age is a big thing too. I mean, if you're 65, 70, 80 years old, like you're not going to do the same types of things you used to be able to do. So there's no reason for you to go do Olympic lifts when you're 80 years old. You should be doing things that are more joint friendly for you, so you feel a little better, you know?
Exactly.
So
unless you're Jack LaLanne, then you can do anything.
Right. A lot of that's genetic for sure. Like if you're genetically, if you can handle that stuff, go for it. But
I know, but it doesn't make sense because that's not who you are and where you are at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up because I know because I work with a lot of people who are older, and it's always, I used to be able to, fill in the blank. And it's like, okay, yeah, I used to be able to whatever too, but it's not where we are now. It doesn't mean you can't be your best version of you now.
Exactly. It goes back to that realistic expectation you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of crazy how that works, but whatever. Anyway, so, something that I want to go back to the nutrition thing too about tips and tricks, because you'd mentioned, not going from 0 to 60. It's like not going from Kit Kat to kale in one fell swoop. It's like, you got to make these changes. But what are some things that people could do to maybe show themselves some grace as they're, making these changes? Because I know a lot of people feel like they have to be perfect all the time right away. And if they don't get rid of everything, then they failed and they might as well give up. So what would you do or say, or tips or tricks?
I mean, again, it's start small. That's a big thing. I mean, one of the best examples we use is if you want to start doing push-ups, you're not going to do 100 push-ups on day one. You start with one push-up. If you're going to start flossing your teeth, you're going to start with flossing one tooth, and then you start with flossing two teeth. So it's starting small. That's the biggest thing. And writing these things down. So that's a big thing with the tips and tricks. If you don't write it down, you can't see it every day. So if you just say, hey, I'm going to start eating healthy, well, what does that mean? All right, if I write down, I'm going to start eating one serving of fruit and vegetable every day, then you can see it. You can post it on your mirror. You can have it on your hand. You can put it in your phone. So it's something you can watch and see every day, and something you can manage. So those are two things I'd say right there. Also, too, it goes back to your social circle. Who are you hanging out with? That's a big thing. If all of your friends are out eating terribly, the chances of you eating terribly are pretty high. So understanding what social circle you're in is going to determine, what path you want to take. I'm not saying lose your friends. I'm not saying that, but understanding in certain situations who you're around is going to be a big determinant of what you're eating. I think one secret thing that I think we've used with utility workers and things like that is portion sizing. And we use hand portions for our stuff. So the palm of your hand should be a protein, your protein serving. Your fist should be your carbohydrate. Your thumb should be your fat. And that's instead of measuring your food and weighing it out, you use your hand. That's one way to do that. And hydration is a big thing also. I mean, don't eat till you're miserable. Eat till you're about 80% full, and then you drink water to fill yourself up for the rest. I think those couple things have really changed in body composition and way people think about nutrition.
I really want to, those are fabulous, but I also really want to say too that, the idea of people are really afraid of numbers and things like that. I mean, when it comes to, I'm starting here or, but you can't, if you don't know where you are, then how do you expect to improve? Because you have no metrics, and it doesn't have to look the same for everybody. Because like I said before, I worked in addiction recovery, and people with eating disorders or disordered eating habits can't necessarily write down all the stuff because it's unhealthy for them to do that. But that doesn't mean they can't take a picture of it. That doesn't mean they can't do what you said, like today I'm going to have 2 servings of vegetables, because and then, okay, it's the size of my palm, for example. There's nothing wrong with that. There's always a way. So would you say that maybe sometimes people give up before they figure out what works for them?
Oh, for sure. It's a trial and error for everything, right? It's going to sound kind of weird, but we're like our own little experiments, right? You might try a food and you might not like it, so you substitute with something else.
Exactly. No, I'm the same way. I mean, I totally understand, because it's like, and you can make it fun. It doesn't have to be, this whole horrible thing where you're just stuck. Like, you.
I don't
on
know
the
what the
screen.
I don't know what the deal is with that. There's some weird there's some weird juju in here. I don't know what it is. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I don't know.
Like, I'm just gonna keep talking.
No. I know. Anyway, so back to what I was
First
saying
you're like,
about.
you're haunted. Sorry.
Hey, sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. I don't know. But
Yeah.
anyway, so back to what we were talking about with just the different things of, we were talking about the hand portion sizes and things like that. It's doing things. I don't remember what we're talking about now. Now the ghost has got me now.
I know. Sorry, I threw you off. No, but we were just talking about tips and tricks and things like that, and metrics and how you can't always just write down absolutely everything. I mean, especially depending on your lifestyle, that sort of thing. But it doesn't mean that you don't take control of that, and also to keep on experimenting with yourself to see what works for you, because that's the fun part. It doesn't have to work the first time.
Right.
You're not going to be any worse off than you when before you started. It might take you a little bit longer, but at least you can find something that works for you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And like you reminded me of what I was going to say. Yeah. There's going to be not, I guess, failure and shortfalls along the way. And it's just, how do you look at that and go, okay, I'm going to change this. That didn't work for me. Maybe I can't eat this specific food because it does X to me or Y to me. I need to figure out something else, and I need to ask the right person to make that substitution. So it's, but that's kind of the nature of how the world is right now. It's, oh, I didn't do well in the first thing, so I'm not going to do that anymore. So yeah, it's a mindset shift for sure. So
it 100% is. And it's, it's interesting that we're sort of taught in school to figure it out on our own. And if you get the wrong answer, then you fail. So, it's fascinating how it doesn't really prepare you for adulthood in some respects, regular school. But yeah, no, I like the idea of experimenting with ourselves and just figuring out what works, because, if you keep going, you're going to find the answer. If that wasn't the case, we wouldn't have lights right now.
True. Very true.
So what do you think about like body and wellness myths? What is some of them that like irritate you?
Spot reducing is
probably
a big one.
That was sorry.
You get people all the time going, well, how do I get rid of the fat on this part of my body? I'm like, well, you can't. It's just sometimes you can't physically target an area like that unless you're going through like a surgery or some type of procedure. That's different. In the strength and conditioning world and some of the workout worlds, I get people coming up to me all the time. Hey, I'm going to do a chest, back, and bicep day in the gym, or I'm going to do a leg day. And that's not how our bodies work. Our bodies don't work in isolation like that. So you want to train movements, not muscles. Because when you train muscles, you miss movement patterns. You miss walking and lunging and stepping and pulling and pushing. But when you train movement patterns, you never miss muscles. You'll hit them all the way they need to be. You hit them all the way they're supposed to be designed. And one of the biggest, I guess it's a pet peeve or something that ekes me, is when people say, "Oh, I'm doing biceps today." That kind of stuff gets me, just because I know the background behind it. And then there's other things too, but those are the two main ones where I'm like, okay, like let's
too.
Time out, So yeah.
Those are mine too. That's so funny. Yeah. Literally my two like nails on a chalkboard. But I hear it all the time. It's like, please stop. When are you gonna just use your bicep? I'm all about functionality.
For sure.
So for those people and this is just actually, we are running low on time. So I want to make sure that we have, we might have a little bit of time at the very, very end, but I would love for you to reiterate the program again, just for anybody who might be hopping on now, because I know there are some people watching that weren't watching earlier.
Yeah, for sure. So the Resilient Recruit program, kind of a tongue twister, it's a program designed for people that are going into law enforcement and the fire service. So they're people who are in the recruit academies, they're in the recruit classes, and our goal is to be the main resource and the tool for leadership in these academies to reduce their injuries, reduce their costs in terms of a department, because it costs close to 6 figures for every recruit that comes through. and to reduce the amount of people who are recycled through on other academies, because when someone's recycled through, that costs the department more money. They have less resources now, and then it has a trickle down effect from a workers' comp standpoint and everything else. So we've utilized information gathering and applications and our motion capture assessments to put together a program and a resource to help these people out, and just across the country to make have our first responders be healthier, more fit, and just, overall just better performers.
I like that. I just think that's so amazing. So I guess what I'm curious about too is, we've been talking about how there's a lot more in common than not, and we're not really all that different. So, for somebody that, because, we were talking about ego, but there's also that insecurity too. There's still insecurity no matter what your fitness level, no matter how well your nutrition is. Do you have any tips or tricks or anything that you would recommend to somebody that maybe could help them overcome themselves and still continue to work on their goals? Because I know, and I'm going to give an example, somebody who's afraid to go to the gym because they think they weigh too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of those things is it's what you just said about insecurities. Like even the person who's super fit has the insecurity. That's why they're so fit, because they have the insecurity of not being fit. So I think it's one of those things where when you do go to the gym, let's say someone's very overweight or they're just not comfortable going, is just trying to get over the fear of, hey, people are watching me, or I'm just going to worry about myself. Like that's what it should be, that you're on your own journey going into the gym. So no one should be thinking about what the other person across the gym is doing, or if this person's, because everyone's going through something different. We don't know what that super fit person is going through mentally. They could be going through something way different, and they're thinking about that, but then we're too worried about what they're thinking about us when they're not even thinking about this. So it's a whole thing. So I'd say that. Another thing too is I use this with the athletes. The term is block zero, and that's a scientific term, but basically what it means is let's say you're not comfortable going to the gym, then all it takes is for you to go for a walk, in your own space. If that's what it takes to get your journey going, then that's what it takes. And then as you begin to see results, as you begin to feel better, then your next step is to go to the gym. And then the gym doesn't have to be the one-stop shop. It could be in your home. It could be in your backyard. It could be with a couple of family members. So I'd say peel it back a little bit. So everyone thinks you have to be fit you have to be in the gym to be fit, when you don't have to be. You can do other things. And I feel like there's 2 steps before that particular point. So I want people to keep that in mind. And another thing is sometimes social media portrays things that they shouldn't, and not taking all that with a grain of salt sometimes. We don't need to look at the Instagram model and be like, oh, that's what I want to be. I just want to be healthy when I go to the doctor.
Oh, we froze. Third time's a charm. All right. Well, we are basically out of time anyway, so I'm going to use this time. Hopefully you can hear me, Mike. It's been, you're back.
Third time's the charm. Here we go. All right. But
so
I was done talking anyway. I was good. We're good. Yep.
Well, I just want to thank you for being on the show. We made it.
We did. Sometimes technology.
Yeah. I also want to thank you for what you do for first responders and also for students and everybody in between. But, it could be people who have a thankless job, basically need to have a little extra care. So thank you for being that for them.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you having me on and allowing me to share some of my stories and experiences, and just, it's not every day you get to be on a little TV show. So
it's not every day.
So it's pretty cool. So appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mike. And hopefully you'll be on the show again soon.
I'd love to be back. So thank you.
Awesome. Have a great night.
All right, you too.
And that is all the time that we have for today. We will be back on Monday. It's just going to be me and you guys. And until then, enjoy the rest of your week. We will see you again next week.